welcome to the deep dive. Sometimes when you're pushing boundaries, it just means more complexity. But what if, just what if, the real leap forward is actually making things simpler, like taking something super traditional, centuries old even, and making it feel, well, effortless? Today we're looking into Hulsman's Easy Perpetual watch. It's this concept piece from the Netherlands, and honestly, it seems like it could genuinely change things in high-end watchmaking.
Absolutely. And our mission here is to really dig into the sources, figure out what makes it tick, quite literally. We want to see how Hulsman tackles this notoriously tricky complication, the perpetual calendar, and makes it, as they say, virtually foolproof. How does he take something historically so complex and make it genuinely easy? That's the core question.
Okay, before we get to Hulsman's solution, maybe we should back up a bit. What exactly is a perpetual calendar, or QP? Why is it considered such a pinnacle, almost a holy grail in watchmaking?
Right. A perpetual calendar, or quantium perpetual if we're being formal, is way more than just telling time. It's a mechanical marvel that shows the day, the date, the month, and crucially, it knows about leap years. Some even have moon phases. But the real magic and let's be honest, the insane complexity is that it adjusts itself automatically. It knows if a month has 30 or 31 days. It knows February's short, except in a leap year when it's 29 days, all without you needing to fiddle with it. That automatic intelligence for all those irregular month lengths, that's what makes it so incredibly complex to engineer.
So it just knows, mechanically.
Mechanically, yes. Through an intricate system of gears and levers, essentially a mechanical program. And it's got history. The first portable one, a pocket watch, was by Thomas Mudge back in 1762, his Knot 525. Then for wristwatches, Patek Philippe put one out in 1925, the reference 97975, but that was using a modified movement from a pendant watch. It wasn't really until Breguet, with their reference 2516, that we got a perpetual calendar movement designed specifically for the wrist.
Wow, okay. So we're talking centuries of development here. That definitely puts Hulsman's work into context. But even with all that history and cleverness, these traditional QPs, they have their downsides, right? They aren't exactly known for being user-friendly.
Oh, absolutely not. That's the rub. They are famously fragile. Keeping them running accurately can be a challenge. And the biggest headache for owners, if the watch stops, if it runs out of power.
Ah, the dreaded reset.
Exactly. You usually have these tiny little pushers, correctors, recessed into the case side. You often need a special tool, like a stylus, to push them. It can be fiddly, time-consuming, and honestly, easy to mess up. Plus, there's often a danger zone, usually around midnight, where trying to adjust the date can actually damage the movement.
Right, I've heard about that. You basically need to know when it's safe to even try and set it.
Precisely. And if you get it wrong, or if it's stuck for a long time, you might need to take it to a watchmaker just to get it set correctly again. So the sources aren't exaggerating when they call the whole process a hassle, even for people who love these things.
Okay, a hassle feels like an understatement. It sounds more like a source of anxiety for owners. Incredible mechanics, sure, but maybe not so practical day to day. So this is the problem Hulsman is tackling with the Easy Perpetual. How does his approach differ? What's the core innovation?
Well, the basic function is the same. It's still a perpetual calendar. But how it's built, how it displays the info, how you set it, and its overall reliability, that's where it's radically different. It's really a fundamental rethink of the user interaction.
So focusing on that easy setting part, how does he achieve that?
He uses a very smart, compact arrangement of components. But the absolute key thing, he completely eliminates those external corrector pushers. Gone.
No pushers at all.
Zero. Everything is done through the crown. This makes setting it incredibly simple. The source material even says you only need to set up the correct date, and the rest will follow automatically. Day, month, leap year, they all sync up once the date is right.
That sounds almost too simple for a QP.
It does, but there's more. He built in a damage prevention system. It actually stops you from making mistakes when switching between setting the time and setting the date via the crown positions. It protects the movement from the user, essentially.
Okay, that's fascinating. Foolproof, like they said. The source mentions an 8-year-old could set it without issues. That really drives the point home. So how does this crown system actually work? Let's unpack that.
Right, so the crown has 3 positions. Pretty standard so far, but the functions are specific. Position 1, all the way in, is just for winding, and it only winds one way. Pull it out to the second position, that's for setting the time, and importantly, you can adjust the time forwards and backwards without harming the calendar.
Okay, bidirectional time setting, that's useful. And the third position?
That's the magic one.
Yeah.
Position 3 is for setting the calendar. Again, it works in both directions, forwards and backwards, and it's quite clever. One full 360-degree turn of the crown advances or reverses the date by exactly 4 days, makes it quicker to adjust if it's been stopped for a while.
4 days per turn. Okay. But what about that safeguard? How does it stop you from messing up?
This is really neat. There's a feedback mechanism. If you happen to leave the date setting halfway between two dates, not quite clicked over, and you try to push the crown back in from position 3, it won't go.
It physically stops you.
Yes, it will not leave the setting position, as the source says. It forces you to complete the date change correctly before you can push the crown back in. And crucially, you cannot accidentally push it from position 3, calendar setting, all the way back to position 1, winding, if the date isn't properly aligned. It prevents that accidental shift.
So the watch itself guides you to do it right and protects itself. That is clever. No more danger zones or special tools.
Exactly. It takes the fear out of interacting with a perpetual calendar.
But the innovation doesn't stop just with the calendar mechanism, does it? What else is
No.
going on in this watch? The design, the display.
No, he's packed in quite a few other unique features. The display is particularly interesting. He uses these specially developed prisms in the side of the case band, to project the day and month indications vertically.
Projected, like onto the side?
Sort of, yes. You see the indications in windows on the side of the watch case. It sounds wild, but apparently it creates this really clean look. You can still see the indicator discs from the front, but inverted. And the date is shown by a pointer hand on the outer edge of the dial. It actually has to jump over those day-month windows as it progresses from the 4th to the 5th and the 7th to the 8th.
An interesting visual dance there. What else?
Up top, there are two small windows, apertures. On the right, a simple day-night indicator. On the left, something quite practical, a special winding indicator. It changes color, first to orange, then red, as the power reserve runs low. A nice visual reminder to wind it.
Always useful for a manual wind watch.
Definitely. And aesthetically, there's a sapphire balance wheel bridge. It makes the balance wheel look like it's just floating there. Very cool effect. Oh, and the leap year indication. That's actually shown on the back of the watch, keeping the dial cleaner.
Makes sense. And the overall size. Sometimes these complex watches can get quite bulky.
That's another plus. It's quite compact, 39 millimeters in diameter and only 9.5 millimeters thick. Very wearable dimensions. It also features hollow lugs, which is a nice detail, and it comes in white, red, or yellow gold.
And I gather personalization is a big part of this too, given the limited numbers.
Oh yes, very much so. The dial is made of multiple parts, and owners get a lot of say. That central section can be finished with traditional guilloche or maybe transparent sapphire, or even something exotic like a piece of meteorite or natural stone.
Meteorite, wow.
Yeah. The outer ring holding the date track can be colored to order. Even the style of the date numerals can be changed. And the hands, which have Hulsman's signature style, can be heat blued or treated to achieve other colors: purple, yellow, brown, basically anything in that annealing spectrum.
So each one really can be quite unique to the owner.
That's the idea, making each of the 12 truly personal.
Which brings us to the exclusivity and, well, the price. 12 pieces sounds incredibly limited.
It is extremely exclusive, and it's offered using a mantra de subscription model.
Ah, the subscription watch. Like pre-ordering directly from the maker.
Exactly. It's an old tradition, builds a direct relationship. Collectors commit upfront, often paying in stages. It helps fund the creation and connects them deeply to the piece. As for the price, it's EUR 138,000 before VAT.
Okay, that's certainly a significant investment. So wrapping this up, what's the real value proposition here for someone deep into watches? Why is this piece important?
Look, 138,000 is undeniably a huge amount of money, no question. But what Hulsman is offering is potentially unprecedented, a perpetual calendar that promises to be genuinely reliable, super easy to use, easy to read, and robust enough for daily wear without constant worry. For decades, the peak of complexity often meant accepting compromises in usability and toughness. Hulsman seems to be saying, you don't have to compromise anymore. The value is in that unique combination. High complication meets genuine, foolproof user-friendliness. It's perhaps redefining what luxury means in this context, not just complexity, but effortless mastery for the owner.
So the big takeaway is, he didn't just build another complicated watch, he rethought the experience of owning one. He tackled the usability and durability issues head-on, making this holy grail complication maybe less intimidating, more, well, enjoyable.
Precisely. It's a fascinating approach.
It really makes you think, doesn't it?
It does, and maybe connecting it to a broader idea, it prompts a question, Think about other areas, other complex technologies or fields. Where else could a relentless focus on foolproof design, on making the complex truly easy for the user, lead to a similar kind of revolutionary leap? Where else is usability the next frontier for innovation?
That's a great question to ponder. Where else could simplicity unlock complexity? Think about that and keep diving deep into whatever captures your curiosity.